Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and today Apple released iOS 14.5 RC, or Release Candidate. This is available to developers and public beta testers and is the final version that will release to the public a little bit later on, unless they find another issue, but generally this will be the final version. Now this came in at 4.56 gigabytes on my iPhone 12 Pro Max, so it's a very large install anytime you go from a beta to a final version, for example, and you'll need the beta profile generally to see this, and you usually can remove it after if you're a beta tester if you don't want to get another update, but I would wait until the final release is out before you do that. Now along with this, Apple also released iPadOS 14.5 RC, watchOS 7.4 RC, macOS 11.3 RC, and tvOS 14.5 RC. So a lot of things were released alongside the spring-loaded Apple event, but let's go ahead and take a look at the build number and then talk about what's new. So if we go to Settings and then we go to General, and then About, you can see the build number is 18E199. This is the final build number unless Apple changes something, but this seemingly is the last build that will be the 14.5 public release build as well. And in this build is no new modem update. So this one does not have a new modem update if you're coming from beta 8 or beta 7. They haven't changed it for a while, but they have improved a lot with 5G and connectivity. But let's talk about the new features first. And the first new thing you've probably already heard about is unlocking your iPhone using an Apple Watch. If you go into your settings and then you scroll down and you go to Face ID and passcode, under Face ID and passcode, if you scroll down again and you have an Apple Watch and your Apple Watch needs to be on watchOS 7.4, you can turn on this option and it says use the secure connection of your Apple Watch to unlock your iPhone when a mask prevents Face ID from recognizing your face. Your watch must be nearby on your wrist, unlocked and protected by a passcode. And so now you can see I have a mask on. Let me lock my phone. I'll pick it up, unlock it, swipe up, and it takes just a moment, vibrates on my wrist and says iPhone 12 Pro Max unlocked by this Apple Watch. And so it unlocks, we're good to go, and you can use it with a mask on. It works pretty well, pretty seamlessly every time. So let me remove the mask. And let's talk about what else Apple announced today, which had to do with AirTags. So they announced AirTags, which are coming as a new product, but along with that is some updates to the Find My app. So if you're using Find My, for example, there'll be a bunch of new updates. For example, the first one is support for everyday item tracking. So you could have a third-party company that uses this, as well as AirTags to find different items. There's also what they announced called precision finding using visual, audible, and haptic feedback to guide you to your nearby AirTag. It uses the U1 chipset in the newer phones and can guide you to that AirTag to tell you precisely where it is. And what it does is it uses that information from the AirTag anonymously and pings off different iPhones that it might be nearby to give you an idea where it is. It's anonymous information, completely secure, and it also has a lost mode which notifies you when your AirTag is found and it may not be found by you. So it gives you that information and then it allows you to enter a phone number where you can be contacted if someone else finds it, for example. It will pop up on their device and notify you of tracking that information. And so we've got AirTags now, third-party devices that you can use Find My with, and I think it's a great addition. It's a huge change that's great to Find My. I use it for finding people, so why not use it for finding items as well? Now the next update has to do with Emoji, and you can see my iPhone 6s Plus is here, and it took a long time to install. So it was still installing and I had to start the video. It just took probably a good 45 minutes to an hour to download and install. So if it's taking you a while, that's pretty normal. But the next thing they've added is Emoji to comply with Unicode standards. So if we go into messages, you can see some of them here. You've got head in the clouds, you've got different beards on different faces, heart on fire, you have a syringe, you have headphones that have changed to AirPods Max, for example, and more. And so all of them have been added, new face emojis, heart emojis, and more. Women with a beard, for example, a couple kissing, a couple with a heart emoji, and much more. So there's a lot of new emoji in this update, and it's just to comply with Unicode standards brought across to many other devices as well. The next one has to do with Siri. There's more diverse voice options now. So if we go into settings and then we go to Siri and search and go to Siri voice, you can see under American, there are 4 voices now. And now they haven't updated necessarily for all locations, but that will be coming eventually. And you'll see it says voice 1, 2, 3, 4. Here, take a listen to them. Let me move my microphone so you can hear them better.
Hi, I'm Siri. Choose the voice you'd like me to use.
Hi, I'm Siri.
Choose the voice you'd like me to use.
Hi, I'm Siri. Choose the voice you'd like me to use.
Hi, I'm Siri. Choose the voice you'd like me to use.
Now, along with that, Apple will also give you the option to choose a different voice upon the first time setting up your iPhone if you don't log in with iCloud. It will ask you which voice you want now, so you can pick it from the start. Now, along with that, Siri gains a few new options or capabilities, and one of them is incoming calls can be announced with Siri, including who is calling when you're wearing your AirPods or compatible Beats headphones. And you can answer hands-free as well. Group FaceTime calls are supported by asking Siri to FaceTime a list of contacts or a group name from messages, and also emergency contacts can be called by asking Siri. So all of those capabilities are added. Now, there's some new additions to Apple Music. I've covered a lot of these in depth, and you'll see the first time you go in, it gives you some of that information. What's new in Apple Music? Lyric sharing, city charts, and made for you. And so now that we're in music, if we go to library, for example, maybe go to an album, you can scroll down on the album. It will tell you the actual album label listed here. You can see Reach Records in this case, and it gives more information as well. So if you play one of these songs, let me turn this down. Now within a selected song, if I tap on the song, I can select the lyric I want, tap on the three dots in the upper right, and share the lyric. So share the lyric along with other lyrics as well, share those out, and now you'll have the option to share them with your friends or family or whoever you'd like. So you can share that along with a clip of the song. It's a new option in music. If we close that and then scroll down here, we'll go to Browse. We have new charts for city charts under radios. You've got different music hits, and there's a lot of changes in music as well. I've covered those in depth in other videos. I'll cover them in depth with all of the other changes as well, little tiny things throughout the menu throughout. So you can see different picks and everything, suggestions and more. Charts I have not seen yet. I know a lot of people are seeing this. I personally have not seen that. So some people are, some are not. Now, the next thing they've updated has to do with podcasts. That was announced at the Apple event today, where they've updated podcasts and a subscription service is coming soon. I've talked about this where they've added an account in the upper right. So now you have the option for a subscription service within podcasts. In a few weeks or so, we should see that. They've changed this around and redesigned it and made it a little bit easier to view podcasts and share them. So, for example, podcast show pages, if we go into one of the podcast show pages, you'll see it looks a little bit different. It has different artwork, has the different episodes. And if we go to the options here, you'll see that we have the option to follow or subscribe here with the check mark, or unfollow the show. So we'll have the option to subscribe to them and get rid of ads in the future as well when it comes to that. You also have the option to save episodes automatically. So if we go to the three dots here, we can save the episode. We have options to save them automatically as well. And also, if we go to search, there's top categories as well. So there's some new categories here for top charts and comedy and news and true crime and more. So they've added a lot of things. They're putting a lot of effort into the podcast app, and I think we'll see more and more in the future. So you've got a bunch of different options here. And again, I've covered a lot of these in other videos when they updated them initially, and you can see that they've just changed it. It's not too different from what we had with Beta 8 though. Now, if you have an iPhone 12 series, iPhone 12, 12 mini, 12 Pro, or 12 Pro Max, there are 5G improvements. And the first one you may have heard of already is dual SIM support. So you have the option for dual 5G SIM support. So you could use dual SIM before, where you could have one SIM on one carrier, one on another with an eSIM. Now that's an option within your phone if you're in a country that you need dual SIMs, for example. So that's one that's changed. If you go into your settings and then you go to cellular, under cellular data options, under data mode, you now have smarter data modes to help you better optimize your battery by switching between 5G and LTE, for example, with low data mode, or if you just want to save as much power as possible. So that's an option as well. Also, 5G international roaming is enabled on supported carriers on iPhone 12 models. So you have that option as well for data roaming, depending on where you're located internationally. Now, one big change that they've brought with iOS 14.5 is privacy, and this is something a lot of us have been looking forward to. If we go to settings and go to privacy, under tracking, we can now disallow apps to request to track. There's more privacy built in. This includes Safari as well as privacy overall. Apps have a very difficult time in iOS 14.5 tracking what you're doing. So app tracking transparency lets you control which apps are allowed to track your activity across companies. So if we turn this on, for example, different applications can ask me if they can track me, and I can select to say yes or no. I turn this off in general because I don't want them to track me, but you do have the option to do that if you want to. So let's go home and we'll go over to the Translate app. They've made a minor change with this. So let's find it here. There we go, Apple's Translate app. So I said, hello, how are you today? And we have it in Spanish. We can play back what it should sound like, but if we press and hold, we now have playback options for speed. So we have 1 1/4 speed, 1x or the normal speed, 3/4x, and a half speed. So those are new speed options within Translate. It's just something they've added. So if you hit play, we'll turn it up. So it will play that back at different speeds if you need to hear it a little bit slower or faster. So that's something they've updated as well. So we'll go into the News app, and under News, if you go to News Plus and you have a News Plus subscription, they've made this look a little bit different. So you have some different options: My Magazine, Downloaded, Newspapers, and Catalog. You've got some options in the upper right to sort the option or the different newspapers or magazines, for example. So they've made some improvements there. Also, if you go to search, they've improved search as well. So under search, you can find things by topic. So maybe we'll just say cars, for example, and let's see what it finds. So it found things related to the topic cars. So it now can search a little bit more based off what you want to see as opposed to a magazine name, and then it will give suggestions. So it's pretty nice that they've added that, and just they continue to improve search overall. Now within Maps, they've added some things as well. So if we go into Maps, and if we go down and maybe plan a route to someplace with navigation, we can now report different things along the way. So if we slide up, hit report, we can report an accident, hazard, or speed check. We can do this with Siri as well. We can report the same sorts of things, and you have that option to just report those and they'll show them along your way, similar to what Waze does. You also have the option to share an ETA. So you can share that ETA with different people, even if you're using a bicycle, for example, or walking. You have that option. So you can share your ETA depending on what you're doing. So it's a nice little addition. So hazards can be reported and more. Now in the Reminders app, they've made a few small changes as well. And one of those changes is the ability to sort your reminders. So if you tap the 3 dots in the upper right, you can sort by now due date, creation date, priority, or title. So you now have the option to sort those. You also have the option to print your reminders, so you can print them as well. So that's something that's a little bit new and they didn't have before. So a few little additional things to help. Now, something else that's pretty big if you're into gaming is whether you're on the iPhone or the iPad, you now have the option to use an Xbox Series X, Xbox Series S, or PlayStation 5 controller with your phone or your iPad if you want to play games on them. So if you want to play Call of Duty, I've often done that on my iPad, you can use those with those devices. So it's nice to have the option for PS5 or Xbox controllers. So those should work now with this update. Now, if you use Apple Fitness Plus, you now have the option to stream those different workouts to AirPlay 2 enabled TVs and devices. So maybe you don't have an Apple TV, you can now stream this directly to those devices. Maybe an LG TV with AirPlay 2, you can stream it to those devices to enjoy the workouts on those TVs. So that's something they've added to Fitness Plus. Now, also, if you use Apple CarPlay, the ETA and maps can be easily shared while driving with new Siri or keyboard controls in CarPlay. So you can use the estimated time of arrival to share it. And you can see handoff is very sensitive to my HomePods, which are probably 2 or 3 feet away. So that keeps popping up. iOS 14.5 release candidate, or the final version, actually fixes a lot of issues as well. And the first thing has to do with messages. There's a few different things that have to do with messages specifically. And the first one is, if we go into messages and maybe you're at the bottom of a thread reading some texts, sometimes the keyboard could hide that information or the bottom row of texts. I've seen this myself. That should be resolved in this particular update. Also, if you delete a thread or maybe you delete a text message from within your messaging and you go to search, sometimes it could show up by mistake in those messages in Spotlight Search. So that should no longer show like it was before. And then finally, sometimes when you typed maybe hello or hi and went to send it, sometimes it just wouldn't send. You'd have to hit it a few times. It wouldn't work. Close the app, go back in. That has now been resolved and it should send properly every single time now. Now, the next thing they fixed has to do with mail. Sometimes Mail would not show new messages unless you rebooted your iPhone. That's been resolved. Now you can see your messages like you should be able to if you use the stock Mail app. So that was a problem for some people. Now messages should show up as expected. Also, in the phone, if you have call blocking turned on, the identification section may not appear in your phone settings for some reason. So sometimes it wouldn't appear. And if you have call blocking turned on for specific people or anything else, sometimes the section just wouldn't show up. So that has been resolved. Now, if you're using Safari and you're using iCloud tabs, sometimes they wouldn't show up properly, and now they should show. I know quite a few people have messaged me this as far as this being a problem for many years, and now it seems to be working properly. Also, if you're using Keychain, there could be an issue where you can't turn it off. So maybe you don't want to use Keychain, Apple's password management system. Now you can turn it off if you don't want it. Also, reminders that were created via Siri, maybe you use Siri to say, remind me of something. Sometimes it would unintentionally be set for early morning hours, even though you wanted it set later in the day to remind you then. That has been resolved. Now, something that many people are aware of at this point has to do with iPhone 11, iPhone 11 Pro, and iPhone 11 Pro Max. The battery health management system has been updated on these phones specifically, no other phones for some reason at this point, where it can recalibrate your battery health more accurately. So you can see on my iPhone 11, it says your battery health reporting system is recalibrating maximum capacity and peak performance capability. This process may take a few weeks. Now, if you have less than 100% maximum capacity, which if you've used it for any amount of time, you probably will, many people are saying that it more accurately recalibrates and then sometimes you gain some capacity back. Now, it's measuring the physical capability of the battery, so it can degrade over time. That's completely normal, 80% after 2 years, but this will recalibrate it more accurately and better predict what it should be at or see what it's actually at. So that has been resolved. Now, something I get asked all the time, does iOS 14.5 resolve the green tint issue on the iPhone 12 series phones? And Apple has not called this out specifically, but what they did say that they've resolved or fixed is they optimized to reduce the appearance of a dim glow that may appear at reduced brightness levels with black backgrounds on iPhone 12 models. Now, people that have been running the betas mostly say it's fixed, especially in very dark situations, but not always. So maybe you're on the settings page in a very dark situation. It should be mostly resolved. Some people say it's 100% resolved. Others say it's not. But generally, you shouldn't see the black pixels showing as though they're lit, for example. So that should be resolved. Also, if you were having issues with your AirPods switching between different devices, that's been optimized as well. AirPods audio routing sometimes would show up incorrectly. Maybe you meant it to go to your iPad and it would go to, say, another phone or maybe your Mac. Now it should work properly. Also, AirPods automatic switching notifications might sometimes be missing or just duplicated, so they've optimized those as well. As far as any other fixes, Apple has not specified anything else that they've resolved with this update. There's also additional security updates in here as well. Now, as far as iPadOS 14.5 release candidate or RC, this version has all of the same things I've already mentioned. All of the fixes that applied to the iPhones or all of the new features are here as well. Everything from music to podcasts and more. So all of those things carry across, as well as privacy, for example, with privacy app tracking, privacy, and all of those things are on the iPad. Now, as far as anything specific to the iPad, it does not appear that there's anything specific. And I've had some issues with my iPad I've mentioned in the past with battery life. Since using the betas, I've only been getting about 5 hours of screen on time. This is true with the last beta. You can see I last charged at 9:33 a.m. I'm currently down to 63% after updating and only using it a couple hours today, 2 hours and 20 minutes, for example. The iPad battery life has not been great for me. If this continues with the release candidate, since it's the final release, what I'll do is completely wipe the iPad and try it again and see if that improves it. Hopefully they've optimized the problems that were causing the drain on the iPad though, but all of the same changes and everything apply to the iPad as well. Now, overall performance of iOS 14.5 seems to be nice and smooth. In fact, early reports of people installing it say the same thing, whether that be on a newer device, an iPhone 11, or all the way back to the iPhone 6s Plus. If we open music, for example, give it just a moment, you'll see it loaded nice and fast. Whether it be music or we go to settings, We'll go back here on the iPhone 11 and then scroll. You'll see everything seems to be nice and smooth, even on the older device. So whether you're playing a game, everything should be as expected or better. So overall, the performance should be much better. Now, I did run benchmarks on all of these just to take a look. So if we go to Geekbench, you'll see on my iPhone 12 Pro Max, I scored 1,585 for single core, 4,128 for multi-core. If we take a look at the history, I did run it a couple times. It's a little bit lower overall than the previous ones, but since this was such a huge update, it does take some time to finish all the background processing. That could take a couple days. So once that's done, I expect this to improve greatly. But right now, those are the scores. Now let's take a look at all of these devices so you can compare yours and see what yours might be if you have any of these devices in between. Now, as you can see from left to right, I have the iPad Pro 12.9 from 2020, followed by the iPhone 6s Plus, then the iPhone 11, and then the iPhone 12 Pro Max. So if you have any of these devices or in between, this should give you a general idea of what to expect. Sometimes they improve, but give it a couple days and you should see a much larger improvement. As far as the overall battery of iOS 14.5 release candidate, it's going to take a few days to know what it's like for sure, as there's a lot of background tasks that need to complete. But as you can see, my battery health is at 100%. These updates do not affect battery health. They're just rechecking the physical capability of the battery. So if you see that change, that's why, but it's completely normal. If we take a look at the last 10 days, it varies depending on the day, but you can see this day I had 3 hours and 9 minutes of screen on time, 2 hours and 31 minutes of screen off time. As far as the overall usage, I was using about 40% of the battery. However, some days I get 10 to 12 hours of screen on time, and I easily go to bed with 50% of my battery life left. So it seems to be pretty good. Most people report the betas as being better than iOS 14.4.2, for example. Now, as far as if you should install iOS 14.5 release candidate, well, if you're already on the betas, absolutely. This is the final release coming out to the public unless they find something major wrong with it. And if you're on iOS 14.4.2 and want to try it out, well, this is the final version, like I said, unless they release another one, which is pretty rare. So we should see a final release next week, according to Apple. They posted on their news site that they're releasing it next week. They did not specify a day. We'll probably hear about that a little bit later, but it will be out next week, of course Friday at the latest, but probably early in the week. I would say Tuesday or Wednesday based on what we normally see. So as early as Monday, of course, but expect that as soon as next week. And then we probably won't have another Apple event until June with iOS 15 on June 7th. So look for that. And I'm really glad this is finally coming out. And I think a lot of people will really enjoy all the features in it. So that's it for iOS 14.5 RC or release candidate. I've been waiting for this for a long time, just like you. Now I'm looking forward to see what Apple has next with iOS 14.6, iOS 15 in June at WWDC and more. But I'm glad this is finally here and releasing to the public next week. So this is pretty exciting. It's a huge update. If you haven't installed this yet, you'll see there's a lot of changes, a lot of features, and support for new products as well. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below, and if you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, of course I'll link it in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.